Let's say they're making a origin story, a young Princess Leia series for Disney Plus. And I say Steve Buscemi should play a young Princess Leia. That's called a fan casting. And we're going to talk about it today, right here on the Resistance broadcast. So welcome everybody to the podcast. It's a glorious Monday. We are in the month of October, which technically means in 2 months from now, the Book of Boba Fett will be here in December. Granted, at the end of December, but still, we are technically 2 calendar months away. October, it is fall time. It's Star Wars season is heating up. We have our Terrifying Tales watch along on Patreon coming up on Thursday, I believe. It's a good time, as always, to be a Star Wars fan, especially if you're here with us, because we always have a good time here on TRB. And with me, as always, is James and Lacey.
Hello.
James, I don't know if you saw this, but Daniel Craig apparently was not happy with the amount of work he had to do to play Stormtrooper in The Force Awakens. Did you see that story?
Yeah. So what I saw was I don't know if it was a headline or not, but you wrote here in the show notes Daniel Craig's overwhelming experience, and I was like, oh wow, and I read it and I was like, I think he was bothered. I don't know that it was an overwhelming experience, but I think it was kind of one of those things where what he seemed to be portraying, in my opinion, was that he was like, on a whim, he was like, should I be in Star Wars? I bet if I wanted to be in Star Wars and I asked right now, they'd put me in Star Wars. So he's like, I'll do it. But he didn't expect to be even as put into Star Wars as he is, because he's like, I never expected to have a speaking line, and here I've got multiple lines, and then even on top of that, I'm like in the scene, I'm the guy, with the lead character, and then on top of that, they didn't even replace my voice with random person. They wanted it to be my voice, and now I'm doing ADR for.
Well, otherwise, why play it?
I know, but it's just one of those things. Like, I think
it's like when your buddy goes, hey, can you come over and just help me move some stuff? And then you get there and they're like, oh, we're moving the whole apartment to a new apartment. And you're like, wait, hold on. He said I was only helping you move a couch.
Yeah. Helping someone move that's a big step in a friendship, and driving someone to the airport as they go over in Seinfeld. But the craziest thing about the story is they were filming Spectre in like the same studio or whatever as The Force Awakens, and people were working on both movies, and that's how he kind of got like pulled into it. JJ was like, oh, why don't we get you a small part? And it turns out JJ's like, all right, so I want you to do some dialogue and
3 hours of lines looping. And stuff. He's like, what?
He's like, hey Daniel, can I call you that? Or call you Mr. Craig? 007?
Can I call you Dan?
So you're gonna work with Daisy, and we're gonna really get into and he's like, what? He's like, I thought I was just standing back. And he said he wanted to be the guy who bumps his helmet,
Yeah.
So I think it's so funny
or
that
who
he got
drops his lightsaber, which I thought was funny. Like, that's just a made up thing.
He just, he got it in over his head. He didn't realize how much JJ wanted him to do. And I think it's just funny that he's reflecting on it that way.
I hope they paid him. Because otherwise it's like, that's another thing that's probably, he's like, this is 3 hours of my time.
I liked his description. Like, I kind of tried to paint it a little bit there, but he describes it as like he was doing makeup or something, and he's just kind of sitting there, and he's like looking at his friend, and he's like, hey man, think there'd be a part for me? Like, he just kind of like lightly mentions it. It's like as if he was kind of thinking about it, but he's like, you think there'd be a part for me? And he's like, are you serious? Like, I'll look into it, or whatever. Yeah. And like, then all of a sudden he gets the call. He's like, yeah, I can imagine somebody being like, would you be interested in having Daniel Craig as a character somewhere, background character, something, some sort of cameo here? And JJ being like,
that would be incredible.
Like, sure.
Right. And it doesn't really sound like him either. To this day, it doesn't sound like Daniel Craig. Like,
I don't think so either. I felt like I was kind of alone in that, where I like listened to it and I'm like, that's Daniel Craig, but I'm like listening to it and I'm like, I don't particularly hear his voice or anything. Daniel Craig is so good though. Like, you watch like Logan Lucky and he's like, I said no peeking. Like,
yeah,
right.
Or you're watching
Knives Out.
Knives Out is another one. Yeah. And it's just like he's so good at doing different voices and stuff. It's almost he's one of those actors like when you hear his real voice, you're like, oh, that's what he sounds like Tom Hardy or something.
I'm so hyped for Bond. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Daniel Craig, I'm sure he doesn't have to worry about that anymore because I doubt he'll be playing any more stormtroopers in the future, though. Who knows? He's not doing Bond anymore. So
that's just like never again. They're like, hey, you want to be a stormtrooper? He's like, no.
They didn't kill off the character, so he could come back.
November 12th, they're like, Stormtrooper, a Star Wars series starring Daniel Craig as Stormtrooper. He's like, I didn't even sign up for this. What is going on? Why are you guys
it just kept going and kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but James, we do have actually some real Star Wars news, current Star Wars stuff to hop into, and we're doing a bit of a hybrid episode here where we're going to do some news, but also have a discussion on that news. So it's an interesting little Monday show here. So why don't you kick things off with the old double R?
It's the Resistance.
All right, Resistance Report this week. We got a story here that's going to lead into another story. And as John said, then we can have a little talk about it. But Mina Massoud was doing some press here, and he was doing it with Screen Rant, specifically Ash Crossan. Didn't say that right. Came out weird. But no, she is obviously a big Star Wars fan. So when she gets someone that she's on the beat, she knows what the rumors are, what fans are saying and everything. So when she got him as an interview, you knew she was going to ask some Star Wars questions, and she went that route with, what's the deal with, this image that you released where you clearly put, lines from Ezra Bridger in this thing, and you got fans going crazy. What was that about? And he answered the question in his own ways to just say, in today's world of fan casting, we've seen it happen so many times. You got to be on that beat, and you got to say, I'm all in. I would love to do this. I'm there. You got to kind of make it a reality, kind of bring it into the world. If you want to go listen to his stuff there, you can check it out on their website and on StarWarsNewsNet.com as we collect everything into the article. But yeah, he, she followed up with a couple other things of like what it meant, what would it mean to you to be involved in Star Wars? And he had a lot of really good things to say. So people started looking at this a little bit as a tell. Like, it's like, oh, now we're starting to see press. People are asking him about it. He's given these types of answers. What does this mean? I'm going to start with you on this, John. How did you take this interview? And do you look at it as any sort of positive or negative step towards him playing the live action Ezra Bridger?
I mean, to me, it seems like he is, like, this to me is like confirmation, actually, that he is playing
Really?
Ezra. Yeah.
That's surprising that you say that, because I feel like you and I are always on the same page of like, don't ever think it's 100%.
Yeah, I just think based on how his face looked when she asked him about it, it was that same face that like Rosario gave and the same face a lot of actors give. And then he said his answer about why he posted it and then said, there's not much more I can say about that. And to me, like, and I wrote this in the article, that to me sounds like an NDA blueprint type of thing and not so much a Forrest Gump, like, that's all I got to say about that,
Yeah.
So, and he said, he's like, I heard rumors and my name had been thrown out there about this Ezra role. And he's like, why not bite on that? And he's like, he kept bringing up the word manifesting. Yeah. And he's like, it's all about manifesting these days.
Lacey knows all about manifesting.
I love manifesting, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Go ahead, John.
Was that a show or something?
That's the show that she watches.
Oh, well, I was actually talking about the actual term manifesting, but I do love the show Manifest.
I was totally going the show joke. Lacey knows all about manifesting.
So I do get the joke, and I do
manifesting.
Both. I love both.
Gotcha.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No. So he was saying how he believes that it's a different day and age where actors can control their own destiny in a way and campaign for themselves, and it's okay. And they have the platform of social media to do it and kind of rally the troops. So like you know, if you are a fan of mine, like, let's go. And he kind of did that with that post. Now, whether that was after him already having discussions, that would make sense to me, because he could have a little more confidence in that. But either way, you know, he is making a great point that it's not the old days where, you know, people had to rely on their publicists and their agents and their managers to try to push for them with headshots and can you get this guy an audition? It's no, I can go to Instagram and put a quote from this character and the fans will find it and they will make it, you know, viral and talk about it. And that's exactly what he said. And he did not shy from that. He's like, I am all about manifesting and creating buzz. And he's like, this is the world we live in now. And I'm going to take full advantage of that. And I think he also still has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about how people sort of treated him after Aladdin because he hasn't gotten a lot of roles, even though that movie did really well. And I thought he was fine as Aladdin.
I thought he was great.
But then you also think about it. He dealt with the pressure under a Disney banner of playing a very popular animated character in live action. They're well aware of that. So there's a lot of things that line up to make sense for him to do this because Ezra's not as popular of a character as Aladdin and he could easily handle that. So, you know, and I brought up other stuff in the articles about what is their process and is it a case-by-case basis when it comes to bringing these characters to live action? Because you had Katie Sackhoff, who recently admitted she didn't audition for the role. She was given the role of live action Bo-Katan by Dave Filoni. And then on the other hand, you have Ashley Eckstein, who we had heard wasn't even afforded the opportunity to audition as even a courtesy out of a respect, and she wanted to for Ahsoka Tano. So those are two wildly different things, but two characters that are very in the same area as Ezra in terms of story timeline and that sort of thing, moving from the animated to live action. And then you have him here. Taylor Gray is obviously the elephant in the room. We spoke with him, so I linked our interview with him and remember him telling us he was doing lightsaber training, and he was also saying, not mincing words, that he wanted to fight for the role and he felt like he should play it, and he had conversations with Filoni about it and that sort of thing. So it's, you know, my heart hurts a little bit because, you know, having spoken with Taylor on our podcast made me like him even more, and I was hoping he would get the role, but you know, this guy seems like he really wants it too. And that means a lot to me, as you guys know, when it comes to actors, like really caring. And I like that he's kind of putting his energy out there and kind of going for it and taking his shot, because even though he was in $1 million Disney movie, he's kind of like an underdog now because of how he hasn't really been casted since Aladdin in a lot of things. So I think this would be a good feel-good thing. If it wasn't going to be Taylor, you know, I wouldn't mind it being this guy. But all those things said, it is a wild world where the internet and social media is very powerful, and we've seen that with the Make Solo 2 Happen thing, of course, but I think you're going to see a lot more of this, because look what happened with Rosario Dawson, right? Some Boss Logic did an art image, and then she's just saw it, and she shared it and said that, you know, and she like went for it, and she became Ahsoka. Like, it's just crazy how that can happen. And so I think there's going to be a lot more of this happening. And it's going to be interesting how it goes. But in this instance, it seems like certainly a positive thing.
Well, what do you think about this, Lacey? Because you kind of hinted a little bit earlier that you are in disagreement with John's opinion on this particular topic. Do you think that this means Mina is all but confirmed?
I don't think it's confirmed. No, I think him saying that, I do believe that conversations have taken place. I do believe that either his name is in the running, he's had a conversation with Dave Filoni, he's auditioned for the role, but I don't think that this locks it in that he's confirmed. Because I think that that's... If he was confirmed, I don't think he would be talking about it. Whereas if he's in the running for it, he wants to get that buzz going. He wants people to be like, oh, I would love this. So that the person that makes that final decision is like, you know what? People really liked this. They were all for it. Now, since this kind of rumor started a while ago of like him being in the running for it, we've been on the show talking about Taylor and how much he was like, I'm doing training, and I talked to Dave about it, and I started off as an on-camera actor first before voice actor. I know Ezra. I love Ezra. I want to be Ezra. So there is this kind of bias to that just because we have spoken with that person. And it's a little hard to root for someone else when you're like, okay, I've spoken to this other person that clearly has such an investment in that character. But I agree with John. I think after watching this interview, it's clear that he really wants this role. He had a good experience with Aladdin and proved himself in the big blockbuster world of movies. I think he would do a really good job, and he seems really nice and genuine. So if he does get it, I don't think it's going to be a disappointment for anybody. I don't think anybody's going to see this and be like, oh, I wish it was so-and-so. But it is interesting that he did talk about it, and the whole like Instagram photo with the quote and all this stuff. Like, it's really sneaky, but I'm kind of all for it. Like, you do you, and
that was a long time ago.
That was like a year ago.
8 months ago.
Oh, was it 8 months? I thought it was like last summer.
I think it was like I think it was February he posted that.
Interesting. I've lost track of time. What year is it? Jumanji.
Oh, yeah. Time doesn't matter anymore. Yeah.
But as for his quotes about manifesting, like, I do love the show Manifest, but I am all about manifesting and putting that energy out there that you want then received back to you. I think that's totally the attitude to have about things. So when he brought that up, I was like, yes, you do that, because there have been plenty instances in my life where I'm like, you know what? I really want this thing, and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to put that out there that I want this to happen, and then it happens. So I wish him the best of luck. He seems really awesome. He sounds like he'd be someone that would be great in future interviews for Star Wars and press events and Celebration. Like, he'd be so fun at Celebration on stage and stuff. So I just wish him the best of luck. And I think that he's a good example of a positive fan casting experience like Rosario Dawson, where you see it and you're like, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, sure. And then the person's really passionate about it, so you kind of root them on.
So this is crazy. I'm with you, Lacey, because I was surprised that John said what he said, because to me, when I saw this interview, I was like, oh, he's not even talking to Disney.
You think so? Literally, John's like 100%, like mostly in. I'm like, he's had conversations, and you're like, no.
Yeah, because I'm like, listen to what he's saying. He's straight up telling you exactly what it is. He's like, the image that everybody was like, oh, this, that just is confirmation. He put the picture, he put up the quote, and the speculative side on that, or not the speculative side, but like the skeptical side on that is,
sure,
does that really confirm anything? He's probably just pushing himself in hopes to, maybe catch on to that wave of fan casting or whatever. And that's exactly what it was. It was exactly what he says. He says there was nothing to that image. And again, this interview in and of itself, people are now pointing to it and saying, this is more evidence that he's playing the character. And I'm like, you can't see the forest through the trees here? Like, he is saying, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to ride the wave of fan casting. If, like, for instance, I don't think he brought up the question. I don't think he was like, and
this is
I'm
wild.
Be
You're
this
both
character.
Doing the exact opposite
Really?
of how I thought this conversation was going to go. This is bizarre.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so he is, I don't know. Like, I don't think he pushed for the question to be brought up. I think that's Ash knowing the beat of Star Wars and saying, hey, we got this image. I'm trying to come up with something, so I'm going to ask you about this. And
yes.
But what I'm saying is, like, he wants that to be the case. It's more in line with what Lacey's saying. She says he wants that to be part of the conversation.
He has an agenda.
But not because he's talking to Lucasfilm, because he wishes he could get that conversation. He wants that to be the case. So he's happy it gets brought up. He's like, hey, oh yes, another reporter bringing this up. This is great. I love this. Yes, I'm trying to manifest it. I'm trying to make it a reality. I would love to play the character. It would mean a lot to be in Star Wars. That's great. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, he's not saying anything that makes me hint he's had a discussion or it's happening or any sort of confirmation. He's just telling the truth. I like the idea that fan casting is a thing now, and you gotta push.
Hustle.
You gotta push. You gotta hustle. You gotta put your name out there. I'd love to play the character. So boom, I'm gonna throw it out there and see how fans react to it, because anything you can do for your own benefit, do it. You know, I thought it was very clear as day that he's not had any conversations at all.
Here's why he's Ezra.
This is so weird. I feel like I'm being punked. Like Ashton's about to pop up on the screen and be like, Lacey, we actually told them to switch points of view.
So I know, you know, Kessel Run Transmissions, like they're not around anymore, but they ran their video saying he's in for the final stages or whatever. And they did that a month before he posted this, I think. But also early on when people were saying like, oh, the idea of a live action Ezra, his name was one of the ones fans were talking about. Raul Coley was the other one. And then there was a third. I know Taylor was a fourth, but yeah, Dev Patel. So we're like four of them.
Which is my personal choice. I would think.
No Taylor?
Well, no, look,
on the record?
Real quick, back to what Lacey was saying, 100%. I think we're at the precipice of all three of those people are great choices for different, very specific reasons. Like this guy has like the known actor. This guy has been the character before. And he would, you know, like we're on the cusp of like three separate universes and we can only go down one of them. And
like Spider-Man, you have three different Spider-Man. Yeah.
Any one of those versions would be absolutely great. And once we get it, we'll be like, I can't see anybody but Dev Patel. I can't see anybody but Mina Massoud as Ezra. He was the perfect choice. And there's so many other people, I mean, that they're probably thinking about. I mean, John, you know, like you do the movie podcast, who else was up for this role and what would the world be like if so-and-so was the person?
It was always Mel Gibson. Apparently.
It's true. Yeah. It just is. It's kind of cool for this too. That, you know, we have
Mel Gibson as Ezra.
We have these couple right now, and we're sitting here and we're like, we don't know what universe we'll be in, but once we're there, we're going to be like, remember when we thought that so-and-so even, you know, stood a chance? Like now that we're seeing it on screen, it's crazy. That's him, you know, that's Ezra. But going back to your point, John, what were you saying?
Well, I don't know for TV shows how far in advance they cast before production starts, but we know that Ahsoka has to go into production next year and start filming. As far as we know, there was rumors, I don't think this was official, that The Acolyte was going to be filming in early of 2022, but Ahsoka's got to be filming at some point in 2022 in order to make the 2023 release. So I just think he posted that then, and there was all these, you know, rumors and reports that there were discussions about casting not only him, but a Thrawn and stuff back then. This is 8 months later. Like, this process happened already. And I think if he didn't get the job, he would have told Ash to edit that out or don't ask me about that because that's embarrassing for him to then say,
I don't think he would.
Yeah. I'm manifesting this role that I didn't get.
Counterpoint.
Or at least his publicist would be like, dude, we had a hard time getting you cast and stuff after Aladdin. Don't like talk about this thing you didn't get. So I think he got it.
I think he would have given a different answer though.
But when she was squirming, like when she asked him, not her, she was squirming. He was squirming when she asked him and he started getting all smiley and moving around like nervous. And that line he said was, there's not much more I can say about that. Like, that is such an NDA line.
I don't think he's talking about the show. He's not saying I can't talk anymore about this casting. I think he's saying he explained how he manifested into the world, and that's it. There's not really anything more you can say about that. That's what I did.
It's how he said it.
Maybe
it's how he said it.
Here's my other counterpoint to what your argument is because I think he is still trying to manifest it in the world because there was never an audition. There was never a meeting. He was just never told. Because of that, he's still in the mindset that it could be a role that's out there to get, and they already casted it 3 months ago. And he's out there being like, I hope, you know, I'm out there. I hope I could get it. It would be great. And like, no one from Lucasfilm has said like, hey dude, random other actor, like stop talking about this role because we already casted it, you know? I just think he just doesn't know.
Yeah, I think I'm in the middle of what you're both saying. I think he's had conversations, if not auditioned. I think he does have some experience and that's why he is a little smiley because he has been through the process. but I disagree that it means that he definitely got it, because if she asked him about it and he didn't want to talk about it, they don't talk about it. And then she has nothing to use, and then they wouldn't have used it. It's not even like a, hey, he wouldn't have said that. They just wouldn't even, he would have been like, oh, I have nothing to say about that. Or, oh, hey, that's great. I love Star Wars, but yeah, I don't. I mean, look at Liam Neeson. He hasn't said anything about anything. Like, there's a non-story.
Oh, his dodge, the worst dodge job of all time.
Right. So that to me is more obvious than what he did. Whereas he was just kind of like talking it through and saying that, yeah, I love fan casting and I think it's so great. I don't think that necessarily means he 100% has it, but I think that conversations took place.
So we're on 3 different stances here. Interesting.
But I'd love to know what people think. So definitely like reach out to us and say whose side are you on in the comments or whatever, because I'd love to know what most people took away from this conversation.
I can say that because of the story, I took an image of those 3 people and I put them all next to each other and I said, just based on facial features and just like presence alone, like who do I think looks like, and I never even came to a decision. I was just kind of looking at them and like, man, pick them up in a lineup. Which one is the real Ezra? It's kind of fun to think we're right there and it could be any of these people, or it could be someone completely,
They had all 3 actors go to Freddie Prinze Jr.'s house and play video games with him to get the vibe.
Yeah.
And Freddie Prinze Jr. selected the Ezra. I don't know. I don't know. I really, feel bad if it's not Taylor, more so than what, the Ashley thing and stuff. Cause, we got to speak with him and like really see him pour his soul out about it.
He was manifesting hard.
This guy seems like a good guy, like Lacey said, and he has had a rough go since Aladdin for whatever reason, which sucks because it made a hell of a lot of money and did a good job. So we'll see what comes of it. But his fan casting, it started with people saying we want him, and then he picked up on that and said, I'm gonna run with that. So
now we're going to dive into kind of the opposite side of that, with another news story that was featuring Lucy Lawless. And if anybody knows her connection to Star Wars, it's because after the abrupt firing of Gina Carano as the character Cara Dune, there was a swift fan recast to say, Lucy Lawless absolutely should play this character. She's played a similar type of character before. She looks the part. She looks like she could do it. And she's had a long, credible career of just being a good person, like a celebrity, a good celebrity, person in general. And it was one of those things like you see it and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Retweet. And it blew up so fast that now, a while later, she's doing this interview and she was asked the same question. Hey, fan casting, it's a real thing. Did you see the stuff about you playing this role? What are your thoughts? And she kind of gave the opposite of it, saying, well, to be honest, I was already kind of in talks for something non-Mandalorian related that was Star Wars affiliated. So I was kind of in that discussion. But it may have actually hurt me in some way because they couldn't then hire me because it would seem like it was pandering to, and she just is kind of guessing here. She's not saying this was an official reason from Lucasfilm, but it was be kind of pandering to a very specific fan group that was trying to get this person cast. So if they cast her, not only would it be pandering to the fan group, but it was also this kind of political thing where if trades got a hold of the fact that she was hired to be in Star Wars, unless Lucasfilm told us exactly what she was doing and what she was going to be playing, the character she was going to be playing, it was going to be this whole political thing about how they had recast, they listened to the fans and they recast the character, and everybody was going to think Cara Dune is coming in back and all this, and they just said, nope, we don't want to have anything to do with that, so we're just going to end the conversations with Lucy Lawless altogether. And she's like, it wasn't even about The Mandalorian.
Right.
The sudden fan casting kind of squashed my ability to be in Star Wars because there was a political thing that was attached to it, and I didn't feel like it had anything to do with me as an actress. It was this kind of agenda by fans and just the situation at hand. So I'm going to start with Lacey on this one. What are your thoughts on that story with Lucy Lawless, and how does it, you know, conflict with what we're hearing or what we tend to think of as a good thing when it comes to fan casting?
Yeah, so I think that this is an example of things didn't go the way as they were planned for her, unfortunately. And I think this kind of chimes back to the Ashley Eckstein stuff that we heard, that she didn't even get a chance to audition for Ahsoka. You know, there's two sides to every coin. So when Mina is talking about how he would love to be Ezra and would love the opportunity and loves that fans want him, and same with Rosario Dawson, this is the other side of that coin where people were kind of saying that she should be the one to replace Gina Carano, and that's more of a negative light for fan casting. Like, it clearly affected whatever conversations she was having for another role, which really stinks because Lucy is a great actress. She's awesome. She would be great in any role they gave her for Star Wars. So you kind of feel for her. You're like, wow, this sucks, because she would have been a perfect fit for whatever role they were going to think of having her in. It's just nuts, you know, and we're going to get into, like, I feel like more of a discussion now that we've talked about both these two different stories, but fan casting, man, it gets a little crazy with not only expectations, but the repercussions of what people say online. And I think oftentimes we see things like this where people just throw things out there and think, oh, I think this would be a great idea, but don't realize what could happen in the long run if that takes off.
Yeah. So John, quick, what are your thoughts on this particular story? And you can lead us into the discussion if you want.
Well, so I wrote this, the article for this on the site, and you know, it's amazing how many people just don't read the articles, and it's just, you know, like, people quote tweeted it saying like, "Oh my God, I hope they don't do this." And I'm like, they're not. Like, just read the article. Like, she's addressing this thing that had happened. So first of all, like, that's a problem, which feeds into this. So
not just in Star Wars, in everything, no one reads the articles.
Yeah, in everything. So it's hard to, like, explain this because there's so many, like, layers to it. But because her saying she, you know, she's appreciative of the fan support, but believes it's possible that it hurt her chances at another role she was talking to them about in Star Wars, right?
Right.
And while those discussions had zero connection to the fan push for her to replace Carano, it is impossible to make that clear in the public arena. People won't be able to separate that. It's just no chance. So I get what she means by this, and I think she's right. That there's possible that they broke off talks because of that, and it just, like, it stokes flames that maybe aren't necessary. And then at the same time, that's how I also feel about the character of Cara Dune. I don't think that character is valuable enough to go through the headache of recasting it and having that actor deal with the Gina Carano faithful, who she would be more than happy to be a part of that support, right? Mm-hmm. And just the production in general, Favreau, Filoni dealing with that, and just from the public perspective, that owning a piece of the public perception of the Mandalorian and narrative, it's just not worth it for a character who's in a few episodes, really not that big of an impact player. So I think the write-off is the best thing. Now, the closest we got to this was a Lucasfilm representative who wasn't named, but spoke to one of the bigger trades saying that they don't believe that they are going to recast. But at the same time, nothing official has been said yet. Now, they've started filming The Mandalorian as we speak. We haven't heard anything about that character. My guess is it's written off. But yeah, the fan casting here for Lucy Lawless, it does make sense, because, like, when you think of, like, who's a tough woman who has beat people's asses on TV? Lucy Lawless. Like, yes, and she could look a little like Gina Carano in a way if they did the hair, and she could look like Cara Dune.
You put her in the outfit. Like, I think if she had a Cara Dune Halloween costume, you'd be like, dang.
That's a good cosplay. Yeah. So, and people say, oh, well, she's in her early 50s. Yeah, it's 12 years difference in age or whatever. Great. They can make that work. So I get the fan casting. Sometimes, though, fan casting is so predictable where everyone does the same person. And like James, like you were saying about the Millie Bobby Brown young Leia thing. And that's what, like, I started my joke about the Steve Buscemi thing. I'm like, what's the exact opposite of that? Where no one would say this. And, or the other kid from Stranger Things, oh, he should be a young Ben Solo. And it's like, you see someone tweet that as though like 5 billion other people haven't tweeted that before. Yeah. That's fan casting that's like, to me, tired because it's just not inspired, and people are just like, I'll just put my egg on that basket or something. This one would have made sense, but the juice is not worth the squeeze here with the character. It is unfortunate, though, and I understand Lucasfilm's reasoning about this, that she probably lost out on another role because of it. Because, like she said, even though it wouldn't have been for that character, people have a hard time in
letting go
social media and the public separating two things from each other.
Right.
And it just would have been a tough thing to sell. And they're probably like, no offense, but this is probably not worth it for you or us to pursue this. Though apparently she has voiced a character in 2 episodes of Star Wars Resistance, so she has been in Star Wars. So maybe years down the line, when The Mandalorian's over, she can play another character or something. But this is definitely one of those examples of fan casting gone wrong. Like you said, James, quite the opposite of past experiences, say like the Rosario Dawson and stuff like that. So
it would have taken over every interview they had about The Mandalorian. It would have taken over everything she did. That would be the question she got. Like, think about Ewan McGregor being asked to be Obi-Wan, and that's a positive thing. Like, hey, we'd love to see you again being Obi-Wan. It would be that, but the other side where they
did you speak to Gina Carano? She would have been like, no. Yeah. But it's just like,
how do you feel about replacing someone? Like, just negative
and then
stuff.
Forget about the fans, all the videos that be made, all the hashtags, fire Jon Favreau, Lucy Lawless is not Cara Dune, all the...
Yep.
It's not worth it for anybody,
Yeah.
So, James, what do you think about this?
So I agree with it, and I if I were in her position, I would probably be saying the same thing. Like, I'm not really a big fan of like this big fan casting movement or whatever. Like, let actors be actors, let managers be managers, let the system work for itself, kind of thing. And I don't necessarily think she was saying that, but I felt like that was kind of an underlying thing. Like, man, I was kind of looking to go with this, but then there was this big like internet push and didn't even have anything to do with our situation and ended up screwing me out of being in Star Wars. That sucks. So I think there's kind of there was a tone there to come from, like, this fan casting thing kind of messed everything up. But my thing is, like, I'm not a super big fan of fan casting in general, because I think that it's one of those things where when things seem to make sense on the surface, we're also setting our expectations that it's gotta be Mina Massoud or nobody. He's that particular thing has an example where, like, there's an Ezra, another example that people I think would be okay with or whatever. But like Keanu Reeves is Revan or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be this guy or anything. So then as soon as you hire anybody else, it's a problem. And because fans already have their mind set of not giving that person the chance or the opportunity to see what the creators saw, because it should have been Keanu. They messed up. Right. And it already offsets this thing. But all of that to be said,
Anthony and Gruber should be young Han Solo.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? It's like, and who knows?
And he auditioned. They admitted that he auditioned.
Who knows that also didn't play into the bad reception for Solo? Right. That people legitimately being like, because I heard that as an actual reaction to, I saw it, but who they should have got? And I was like,
oh God,
don't even say the guy who did the voice impression. Like, but anyway, that aside, I mean, that's an example, but my thing is, like, the internet and social media is just, it's a fast moving river, and no matter what stones you throw in, you're never going to stop that river from flowing. It just is what it is. Sometimes things are going to happen that have complete good intentions, which is this thing. They whoever was pushing for that to be the case, really had in mind that they were helping this actress land a role, you know, because we've heard it so many times, like,
or they weren't losing the character.
Rosario, yeah, that too. Yeah, Rosario Dawson saying like, man, thank the fans so much. They did this for me. So anytime there's like that flow that starts to happen, that avalanche of people getting behind a certain situation, it just seems so positive, but there's no way to know. It's not like you're blind, you're going in blind, or you're doing something stupid by throwing your, you know, vote in on a fan cast or something. But
right.
just one of those things, like you even things that are meant to be positive sometimes end up being like, it didn't end up working out like we thought it would. And it kind of was an unfortunate thing for this person or for that situation, because there was so much hype around that movie. Everybody went in with big expectations, and it didn't live up to what maybe we pushed the hype card a little too much on our film, and it let everybody down. You know, it's just like, you know, you're trying to sell your movie, but I don't know. It's just, I can think of a million examples, but I don't think this is like inherently a bad thing, really. I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't think it's like something people should stop doing. I'm not voicing against fan casting.
Yeah. There's different types of like fan things. Like I think like what we're doing with the Make Solo 2 Happen stuff is like, you were going to do this, but because it didn't do well, you had to stop. And we're just letting you know that, you know, we support it and we hope you change your mind.
Well, and
right.
one other thing too, like,
yeah,
none of us are absolutely going to turn our back on Lucasfilm if they don't do it.
No,
that's
not.
The other part of it too, that I think people are like, you know, if they don't do this fan cast, they messed up, and it offsets my whole understanding of how that franchise should have been handled or something like that. And I'm like, man, if they don't want to do Solo, they have better pictures. That is why I'm not running Lucasfilm. I think I know, but they always tend to come up with good stuff that I'm happy with.
But like the three main Star Wars characters, Leia, Luke, and Han, you had people like, and it was just so tired because it was Millie Bobby Brown should be Leia, Sebastian Stan should play Luke, and then the Anthony and Gruber should play Han Solo, and then the kid from Stranger Things should play Finn Wolfhard, should be young Ben. It's like it's always the same thing, and it's just everyone wrote it as though they were the first to say it, and it was just like lazy in that way. And I think that is, I don't know if that just gets tired after a long time or whatever, but, and I'm not saying like those roles were there because I just made up three roles that weren't created. Like they never did a young Leia, they never did a young Ben Solo or stuff like that. But it exists in roles that don't exist, but it also exists in things that do exist. And I don't know, like Lacey, how do you feel in general about fan casting? I'm in the middle. I don't think it's like necessarily good or bad. I think we've seen examples where it's good and bad, but I think it's, I guess, how people handle it is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the middle because I think that there's been a lot of great examples of actors and actresses that have gotten roles or gotten in the door due to fan casting and due to interest in a certain person for a character. I don't think it's an overly negative thing, but I think this example of Lucy Lawless is an example of like, hey, you took away something from this person by just throwing this out there. Now, like James said, I don't think people went into this being like, oh, I'm going to take this away from her and like trying to make it a negative thing. But I think what James was saying, which is absolutely correct, is that with any type of fan casting, there's, you know, expectations and entitlement to these characters and to these decisions that they think that they're responsible for. But at the end of the day, none of us are running Lucasfilm. None of us are running any of these projects. None of us are casting directors, and we're not in the audition process, so we don't know what was done. Like I said earlier, Anthony and Gruber was auditioned for Solo. They said that at Celebration when they brought Alden out. That was one of the things they touched on. Lord and Miller said is they said they saw him and Alden was better. They brought Alden back after 3,000 people. So to say that, you know, going back to what James was saying, to say something like, oh, they don't understand, they don't know the character, this person would have been perfect, they did everything wrong. Han Solo, they saw 3,000 people. Like, that is such a detailed search that you can't look at all those auditions that they went through and say that they didn't thoroughly go through every single person and decide who was best. So I fall on the side of, like, the casting directors usually know what's best, if not always know what's best. And I would just caution people that while it's fun to fan cast, I think that's a popular thing people do on social no matter what. It's like, oh, if this project happens, this is who I want to see in this part. But at the same time, just remember that you don't know what you're going to get until you get it. So just keeping an open mind to maybe someone just did a better job. Maybe someone was just a better fit. And it has nothing to do with how they look. I feel like oftentimes fan castings fall on how someone looks, and they're not taking into consideration makeup and hair and lighting and mannerisms and costuming that fall into what makes a character a certain character.
Yeah, like, I don't know if Tom Hanks was like a fan casting of Mr. Rogers, but I still think that was an absolutely horrible choice. Like,
I didn't like that either, and I love Tom Hanks. I look at it and I'm like, I don't see Mr. Rogers at all, because I'm like the biggest Mr. Rogers person ever. I grew up on it, so I just see Tom Hanks. Yeah, same with Walt Disney too. He played Walt Disney, and yes, he sounded like Walt Disney, and like he played the part well in Saving Mr. Banks, but at the same time, I just see Tom Hanks.
the earliest fan casting I remember, because I remember I was in high school at the time, and it wasn't so much. I mean, the internet existed, and there were message boards, and that was the way people like flooded movie sites and stuff like that. It wasn't social. It wasn't
Twitter,
social media per se. There was AOL or whatever. Patrick Stewart for Professor X was like this big one, because when people heard they were making a live action X-Men, they're like, "Who's a good bald actor?"
Right,
like,
that's what I'm saying. It goes on
Patrick
looks.
Stewart,
right?
And and they got him though, so it's like that works sometimes. I just looked one up. I guess I haven't watched this yet, but Henry Cavill, I guess, got The Witcher because Boss Logic again did a rendering of him as the guy. And
he is very good in that.
He shared it to his Instagram.
Boss Logic, 10 most influential people in Hollywood.
Seriously,
apparently, yeah. If you want somebody to play somebody, get in touch with Boss Logic and have him do a render.
You're like, you know how they have that phrase like dress like the part you want or the job you want. You just message Boss Logic and you're like, can you just like make me a CEO of a tech company?
Right. Just for the job you want, not for the job you have.
Another good one. I think he was also a big pusher of this, was Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool.
Yes.
I know fans wanted him for a very long time to be the character, and he kind of pushed it for himself too.
He definitely leaked that footage. I don't care what anybody says.
He was his own fan cast, and I think
but
fans
people
got
were
behind
also
him.
Like pushing.
Yeah.
You know what's not a fan cast? Chris Pratt as Mario. Not a fan.
I almost brought it up in our last story too. I was going to say it's unfortunate. I would have loved to see Lucy Lawless play Mario, but you know, but the fans wanted Chris Pratt so bad.
I just like to see other fandoms go through what we go through, and every once in a while, like I love Nintendo, I love video games, but I'm not in that fandom like a lot of people are. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, see, that's what we go through. Welcome to Star Wars. Like that's
just total side note on that, because that is a fun thing that we just don't always get the opportunity to talk about. I wanted to say, when I saw all that, I did the same thing everybody else did. I was like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what?
But my thing is like, I just took a step back from it and I go, so they're very clearly doing something completely different. And what they're going to do is not anything that we've ever seen with Mario before. It's very clearly going to pander to Jack Black and Keegan-Michael Key and stuff. It's like they're very clearly going to do like a celebrity-based different version of Mario in the world and just something completely different. I don't
Jack
think
Black's
you're
carrying
getting
that movie as Bowser, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting like the same video you get like in a Mario game, and then it's just like a 2-hour cinematic. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think they're gonna do something completely different. Otherwise,
I think it's funny
they gotta know they're just completely off the marks.
You know,
so,
like
whatever their vision is, we don't know it yet, but they're gonna do it right.
Right.
like when they make remakes of good movies, you're like, oh man, Michael Keaton's my Batman, you know? But like with Super Mario, you're like, man, John Leguizamo's my Luigi, man. Like Bob Hoskins, that's my Mario, man. Like no one's saying that because that movie sucked so much, but it's just like no one cares about that movie.
It's
you
funny.
could be like a purist of Super Mario Brothers movie, you know?
We just bought that off the internet. Someone shipped it to us from Japan. We bought like a Blu-ray copy from Japan because they don't sell it here.
Why?
Matt loves that movie.
What?
I know, but yeah, but very clearly Matt loves it because it's bad and because it's fun to like.
Campy.
Yeah, it's campy and it's intentionally like something to laugh at and enjoy. And
he was
whatever.
so pumped. The first version or the first copy he ordered got lost in the mail and he was so sad. So then the guy from Japan sent him another copy and it showed up the other day and he's like, it's here. And he was all excited.
What is funny too is Nintendo is making this movie, which the news was surprising because that Nintendo doesn't do that. They don't make Legend of Zelda movies and stuff like that because straight up to this day, no matter how many years it's been, their answer has always been, we thought it could work. We tried it and it didn't work. And I'm like, did you really try it?
Is that a try?
You really swung for the fences on your one movie. Somebody sold Nintendo on this. This is the wave of the future. This is the way the movies are going to be. And it was just a hard miss. And it's so sad because like we could have great Nintendo content, you know, with all
Zelda
the
would be
properties
a
that they
great
own.
movie. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
exactly. Or it would be like a great like show, like Netflix show, like a continual series or whatever. Or they could do like a season. They could do it like what's the show? I can't think of it right now. American Horror Story. Where like every season is a new iteration of the of a story, and they kind of recast and rebuild the world, and it's different every, you know. But
long story short,
it could be fun.
I saw the casting for that, and I went, "Welcome to the Star Wars casting calls."
Yeah.
Welcome to the craziness that is as soon as someone's announced as an actor what people do.
A lot of people reacted immediately assuming it was live action. And people were very upset about it. It's like, everyone just take a breath for like 5 seconds.
And
like,
that's what I was trying to say is like, hey, just know that there's, and look, they could be totally off the mark. They could be totally wrong. I'm saying wait until you see something.
Guys, this is why you gotta throw out more tweets, just more shots in the dark, because think about the one person out there that has "Make Chris Pratt Mario, you cowards" tweet before he was announced.
There was a tweet. There was a tweet. Someone tweeted, I think it was a year ago, last summer. Someone tweeted, I guess there were rumors they were making a movie. And someone said, watch, they'll make Chris Pratt Mario. And then they announced it and everyone, it went viral. The guy's tweet, they were like, what did you do? And the guy was like, I didn't mean it. I was just joking. Like,
you know what, though? Well, I don't see why it's such a big deal. I don't. Like, Chris Pratt
Chris
is box
Pratt,
office.
I like it.
Freudian slip there.
I think he's like a nice guy, and he is box office gold. It's all these blockbuster hits. Like, he already did the Lego movie. He was the lead character as an animated voice. So
the Alien movie was really good that he did recently.
I feel like the hysteria, like, I don't know where it came from, but my guess is people who felt like they needed to tweet first, so their 6 followers got that info or their take, immediately assumed it was live action. In which I would be like, that is a weird casting. Chris Pratt as Mario.
Side note, with social media, nothing has been irking me more lately than people saying things that are very obvious. Online about Star Wars projects or casting or trailers or anything where they're like,
but that's not what I'm saying.
I know, but I'm playing off of what you're saying of the people that have to get it out being like, well, clearly we're going to see new Star Wars footage on November 12th, Disney Plus Day, guys. And I'm like, what is this, an exclusive? Of course. Of course we're going to see new stuff that day.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about like the positive fan castings and stuff, but the one negative, I think, which isn't proven yet, is Brie Larson in Star Wars. I think because people have been pushing so hard for that, That's never going to happen now.
I think she's Lucy Lawless 2.0. Like they aren't going to touch that. Yeah. I think conversations took place.
She might have even been 1.0. We never heard about it.
Right. I think she was in conversations. That's why she went to Galaxy's Edge. That's why she was posting all those pictures of herself as a Jedi. And then they just were like, you know what? Let's move away from this. Well, not saying that she didn't deserve it. I'm just saying with all the craziness, you just got to make decisions based on PR.
I just thought of a fan casting that definitely existed that happened and was great. How did we not think of this? Donald Glover is Lando Calrissian.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I feel like
everybody picked him.
Everyone did pick him.
Everyone.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I don't know how we overlooked that.
You know, it's kind of one of those things. Like, I'm not entirely positive that casting directors aren't regularly influenced anyway. Like, okay, it's your job to be the person to pick, you know, who you think it would be up for this role. And they're people just the same as anybody else. They're like, man, I kind of saw this online and I just thought this was a really good idea. And they never really admit or know who's asking the casting director, you know, like, where did you get the inspiration to cast Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian? It's like, oh, it was everywhere. I saw it everywhere and I thought, yeah, that would be perfect. So I in my head, that's who I had in mind. Usually you don't ever hear that unless it's like the director saying, oh, I always had Tom Hanks as my guy, you know, for the lead character. But hardly ever do you hear a casting director say that, you know, they were influenced by a fan cast or an image they saw, a piece of fan art or something like that, a tweet that just said, you know, can we get this character in Star Wars? And they're like, I agree with that. Do I have any roles that would apply for said actor in Star Wars? Actually, I do. Right. I do, actually. That this could be good.
Yeah, because if people get the idea that their ears are that close to the ground, they're going to be like, I can influence and I can, you know, get this person if I want, you know, and I'll be important then and stuff. But it's
actually all casting decisions are made by Russia. They're just influencing social media
by an algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but like I think my closing thought on this is whether fan casting can be good, it can be bad. I think it comes down to how heavy it is, how controversial it may be, and also what type of people wrap themselves around it in terms of like the subcultures or subgroups online. Like when you hear like, oh, we want Brie Larson to be in Star Wars, but we want her to be in there just to piss off this group of fans or something. Like that's not the right way to do it. But people saying like, man, like how perfect would Donald Glover be as Lando Calrissian? And everyone's like, man, that you're right. And it just kind of like manifests in that word again. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. As long as people aren't doing it, as long as people are doing it for sincere reasons, like it just has fans and that sort of thing, I think it can be a good thing. So
do you guys have any fan casts, personal fan casts that...
I've had some that didn't come to fruition that mine aren't usually very popular, like when I put them out there. But I thought,
well,
you start with
Tom
Steve
Hiddleston
Buscemi.
Palpatine. Tom Hiddleston Palpatine is the one everybody always pushes.
That is a big one. Are you saying just Star Wars or any?
I was saying Star Wars, but you know, if you want to go off
John Boyega is James Bond.
Yeah, we just kind of talked about that on our Twitter the end of last week.
Like as a specific character, or I want this person in Star Wars.
Look, I'm not trying to put any pressure on anybody. Just
I don't have any, to be honest, and I fall back on, you know, what I said before is like fan casting can be great, it can be terrible. It's all about setting expectations against fan entitlement when those things don't come to fruition or don't happen. But I just like to remind everybody that oftentimes fan castings fall down to looks and not based on how good an actor is or
because nobody's fan casting Alden Ehrenreich on looks.
Well, as an example,
it's like it really comes down to his ability to act and how he can portray the character. Yeah.
Well, one of the most popular ones in my head, at least, is when Jennifer Lawrence got cast as Katniss for Hunger Games. People were so angry because they were like, she's blonde. Like, you can dye your hair.
Yeah, it's not that is not hard.
So
I always
mad.
lose it on fan castings. I don't go all the way. I
Sure.
look at an actor and I say that person's great. Like, I would love to have her in Star Wars or whatever. And then I think if I were going to cast that character in a Star Wars role, what would I do with that character? Would I want him to be a villain or a Jedi or a pilot or something like that? And then I just I don't put it together. I think fans tend to work backwards most often. They go, who do I want to see as Harrison Dula? You know what I mean? And they like move backwards, and then they look for actors that maybe match up with
that
character's look or their vibe or whatever. And then they say, look, you can look at these characters side by side. Wouldn't that be a perfect fit? You know, like, we look at everything we like about this person as just a general celebrity. Aren't they great? Wouldn't it be great to see him play this character? But I think where you really got to look at it from is kind of what I was saying before, is start at the actor and say, like, how would I want this person to be in Star Wars? Who do I think they could play based on their acting ability and whatnot, and who characters they kind of play, and then see where that leads you. To see if there's a character in Star Wars that already kind of exists that for that character, instead of working backwards.
Do you know what the tagline for the Super Mario Brothers movie was?
We're back on that. No, go
Jump
ahead.
hard.
This ain't no game.
I wish I was in that meeting. Have you done that one on your podcast yet, John?
No.
Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah.
No, I'm never doing that on my podcast.
I have a feeling it's coming up soon.
I'm going to speak for John and say we only do good movies.
No, we're doing Total Recall next, which I hate to break it to Mike. I didn't really like it very much on the rewatch, but
Matt loves Total Recall.
I know, I'm sure.
He loves Arnold.
But all right, well, we're up against time, so do you guys have anything else before we hop on out?
No, I think we pretty much finished it up with that. Ain't no game. Fan casting ain't no game.
This ain't no game. Unbelievable. All right. Well, real quick, we just want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Make sure you do subscribe to the show on your preferred platform, whether that's YouTube or audio apps like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever.
Yes.
It's free to do that. If you would like to support what we do, head to patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. Tiers start at just $2 a month. And as you go up in the tiers, there's more perks, rewards, merch, benefits. We also have a Discord chat, which people have seemed to really gravitate towards. And there's a really solid community just in general on our Patreon. So thank you to anyone who's been supporting us there. And if you're thinking about it, check it out. And if it's for you, thank you. If not, you still got us twice a week, free of charge. Special thanks, though, to our Patreon generals and Spice Runners. So, Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olsen, Jake Houchins, Oliver Lewis, Frank Grande, Haz Aslam, Joe Ritchie, Darth Hurricane, John Charlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, and Val TRICHKOV. Those are our generals. Yeah. Thank you. And the spicy of the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Double C Chris, Kendall GELNER, Ryan WAARA, Dave HORNAK. Congrats on the new restaurant, buddy. MICAH Harrison and Thomas Hennessy. Thank you all for all of your support. Star Wars Newsnet. Go there every day. All the news that we talk about on this show this past Thursday. And as things heat up, StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. Star Wars Newsnet. I'm starting to write a little more, so I'm feeling good about that. And my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, on all audio platforms. Not doing Super Mario Brothers the movie. This ain't no game.
You should.
James, you're up.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Chunks, and pushing to be fan casted in Star Wars as Chewbacca. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Oh, the fan casting of fans.
Order.
Yeah, it's a tall order.
That is a oosh. Eesh.
I want to be fan casted as like Poe or something, you know, like someone who's already like
I want to be Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker.
No, well, you know, the fan cast of Hayden Christensen saying one day I'm gonna play that character, And I don't mean I'm going to play that character. I mean, one day they're going to remove that character out of this movie and put me in.
James, when they do the multiverse, you could be one of the Anakins.
Yeah, exactly.
Lacey.
People could find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, and also writing recently on StarWarsNewsNet.com.
That's true.
I've done a bunch of posts lately.
Yeah, holding down the Hasbro game with Darby.
Yeah.
Very
People
good.
should comment who we should play in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Who would you cast us as?
Yeah, who would you cast us as?
What's the guy?
Wars?
Dengar? Roth Dengar?
Rothgar Dang.
Rothgar Dang.
I have a feeling he's going to become our next Jack Fish.
It sounds like he sounds like a who's the neighbor in King of the Hill? The one that Boomhauer?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
When you say his name, it sounds like Boomhauer talking.
Well, if you think of his first name, sounds like the two singers of Van Halen.
Like, what?
Yeah, that's true. His first name sounds like the two singers of Van Halen, Roth and Hagar. Rothgar.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. All right, we're getting out of here. We'll be back on Thursday. Talk a little bit about canon. How special it is to everybody. So we'll enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you on Thursday morning right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids. You fan casters.